Doing well. How are you doing?
Great, great, great. So, you wanted to get started with some news highlights, right?
I did. You know, it's interesting. I've gotten feedback from people by way of email, rawlingsmt@verizon.net, and I really appreciate the input and the questions. And sometimes they are broad, and as even the things that aren't necessarily we've been talking about. But at the same time, I think it's important to be able to touch some of those. I think Billy Graham said that a man of God should have the Bible in one hand and a newspaper in the other. I don't think he envisioned the internet and all that silliness, you know, whenever he said that. But I think it's important. And some people have asked things like, do I believe that racism has gotten worse in the country? What do I think the future is for Black America? Again, these are just all my opinions, so you know, for whatever that's worth. And some people have actually asked, how long will God hold judgment back? And you know, when I picked up the news yesterday and I looked at the riots that are happening in Portland, and they've been going on for months, and a lot of property has been burned down, a lot of people have been hurt, businesses have been left, and so, you know, I look at that in Portland. And then yesterday, one of the big things, or last couple of days in the news, is that a transgender person who was born a male will be allowed to participate in weightlifting as a female in the Olympics. And the tough thing is the leading woman weightlifter out there right now, she says, I have several world records, and she broke them all. We have no chance going to the Olympics in this. There's a lot of things in our state that's happened with Loudoun County, and you know, people are divided. There's board meetings.
I have a solution to that, Trent.
Okay, good. Well, you can wrap it up for me then.
No, I want you to keep going, but that particular one has always been interesting to me because I had a problem with transgenders going into public restrooms, whichever one they chose. Mm-hmm. And so, since this somewhat new creation of a hybrid male or female gender has been created, then they should have their own separate everything. They should have their own separate restrooms. They should have their own separate Olympics. What I mean by that is they compete against each other. A person who was born a woman, a person who was born a man who has now had the operation to become a woman should only be able to compete with a person who has been born a man and had an operation to become a woman. They should not be able to compete with the gender that was born that way. And since, like I said, this is a new creation of hybrid human beings, and I'm not saying that in a demoting or bad, negative way. I'm just saying that I don't want my granddaughter to go in the same restroom as someone who was born a man but has decided that they want to be a woman. And that is not anything against that person. That is just they need their own separate stalls or bathrooms, period.
Well, Coco, the reason that will never happen is because it makes too much sense.
Right.
And unfortunately, I mean, that is probably the answer to it all.
Yeah.
But people aren't bringing that up.
Let's bring it up,
which is
so
we're gonna bring it up now. Right. And it's interesting that we as Christians have certain opinions and beliefs, but we as Americans, to some degree, we need to separate that. You know, for instance, I certainly have an opinion morally about such a thing. Mm-hmm. As an American, I believe in the rights of all individuals, and I know that can be controversial. Now, I'll state my opinion, I'll fight for my opinion, I'll whatever, but at the end of the day, you know, we are a country that stands up for people. Even if it's something we think is wrong, and you know, what have you, we still need to be able to fight for the rights of people. And so, Yeah, so that's a challenge one. So in Loudoun County, they're about the curriculum, critical race theory, and people have come out by the hundreds. They've had to stop the meetings. There were 250 parents that wanted to speak out against this. They're totally at war. They're trying to bring people on the board back off of the board. There was a report this morning that MS-13 individual that came across the border illegally killed himself, killed his girlfriend, killed 2 kids. There's a riot in South Carolina outside the police station for 2 individuals that were arrested. And Illinois, 3 people were pulled over for a traffic violation, and they get out and strangle the police officer. And so those things are happening. And so, the question is so often asked, how long will God hold back judgment on our country? And I am here to submit to you, he has not, and there is judgment taking place in our country right now. We, as a country, are being judged. Now, what do I mean by that? We can look at this year, 155 police officers have been killed, 37 of them have been murdered. In 2018, 60,000 were assaulted with weapons. So those things are happening. So how long will God say, I'm holding that back? But here's the thing. God has shown us in Romans, and maybe this be a little bit off topic, we could do a Bible study today.
Yeah.
How's that? So we'll do Bible study. Anyone out there that has their Bible, one of the things that God does in the progression of judgment is he abandons. He pulls himself away from certain individuals. And we can see that with Samson, whenever he got his hair cut and he went out to fight the Philistines, and it said, but he did not know that the Lord had left him. So that can happen, and you don't even know that he's gone. In Judges 10, God said to the people, I will deliver you no more. Cry out to the gods that you've chosen. Don't ask me. In Matthew 15:14, so leave them alone. In Acts 14:16, God permitted all the nations to go their own way. But here's the thing. What is he judging the world for? Because we can look at immorality, we can look at the violence, we can look at the hate, we can look at all of those things and say, how long will God wait? But the challenge is, we have to see those actually as a judgment. Within Romans, Paul talks about 3 reasons that he would judge people. And the first one is suppressing God's truth. The second one is ignoring God's revelation. And the third one is perverting God's glory. Now, what does that mean? Suppression of truth. It's been a long time since people have been able to pray in school. There was one situation in California where a coach at the end of each game went to the 50-yard line and prayed. Well, they complained about it. So then he waited for everyone to be gone and he prayed himself. Well, then some people heard about it. Next thing you know, there's a large group. So now they eventually got the man fired because he went to the 50-yard line and prayed. Suppression of the truth is to not deny people to hear the truth. And as we've talked in this show, that the God of this world, Satan, is a liar. And he deceives and he lies. We have to have the truth. We need to speak the truth. We as believers know the truth. Suppression, denying his existence. There's one of our political groups actually took the word God out of their declaration. They do not want God mentioned any longer. Different ways, we suppress it. Things like, if anyone goes on in Romans to say that the nature itself teaches us. So if you have a telescope and you can look at the stars in the sky and you can look at the intricacies of God creating us and in creating the earth, it is just amazing. I guess some would say there was a Big Bang. So there was, and God may have done it through a Big Bang, but you have nothing, they say, exploded. There was nothing there, and it exploded. And when it exploded, it left one piece out, round, to burn forever. It doesn't burn out, doesn't burn up, doesn't whatever. He sent another one out, Earth, to rotate on its axis, and to circle that sun. For that to happen haphazardly is insane, but we're no longer able to teach that in schools. So suppressing the truth. And the second one is ignoring God's truth. Well, I've mentioned a telescope. We can do the same thing through a microscope. You just cannot honestly look at the universe or look at our bodies, how God has made our bodies and what He's done. We can see, we can hear, we can taste, we can smell, and then to say, no God. So once again, we ignore God's truth. And it's people that are sinning against the light that they have. And the third one is perverting God's truth. And what happens in perverting God's truth is there's worthless thinking, there's moral insensitivity, there's religious stupidity. And we pervert the word of God. We've always made idols. An idol is just something that man was created in God's image, and so we want to create God in our image, and that becomes an idol. Now, the interesting thing is, what is God's response to those three sins? And His response is a form of judgment. And what His judgment is, in Romans 1:24, this is the result. This is what God did as a result of those other things. Therefore, God gave them over in the desires of their hearts. He gave them over. God holds back perversion and holds back sin. If we were just let go, the earth would destroy itself. We would kill ourselves within no amount of time. It says God gave them over to the desires of their hearts, to impurity, for the dishonoring of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshiped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is forever worthy of praise. So the first thing that God does as an effort, as part of judgment, is give people over to their perversions. The second thing is, I'm going to go back up to 24. Therefore, God gave them over to the desires of their hearts, to impurity, for the dishonoring of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshiped and served the creature. 26, for this reason, God gave them over to dishonorable passions. Even their women exchanged natural relations for unnatural ones. Likewise, the men abandoned natural relations with women and burned with lust for one another. Men committed indecent acts with other men and received in themselves the due penalty of their error. So this is a result. The sin that we commit is to deny God, to suppress the truth, whatever. But then when that happens, God pulls back from a people and turns those people over to perversions, to sin, to all type of things. Then finally, the Bible says that He turns us over to reprobate minds. And so the final thing to take place as far as God judging the earth, or the next thing that takes place, first He turns us over to perversions, but then He says, I'm turning you over to a reprobate mind. A reprobate mind is worthless, basically what it is. And so with a reprobate mind, we are told that people will just think the most absurd things and believe that this is right and believe that this is true. That is part of judgment. I've turned you over to those things. There are some of the different things happening in the news. I remember during one of the, I don't know if it was a protest or riot, and I agree there are two different things. I've been a part of protests, and never been a part of a riot. But within that, there was a group of people lined up, and then a group of police officers lined up. And a young lady came out, and she did a striptease in front of the police officers. And she took any type of vile position that you could possibly think of. That's a reprobate mind, to think this is okay. And in the process, the Bible says that thinking themselves wise, they think this is a good thing. Now what happened is she did it. The crowd kept the beat and clapped and cheered as she stripped. And so That is a reprobate mind. There was a parade. I guess there's been more than one, but there was a parade for the homosexual community. And within that parade, people came out and they were dressed as human genitalia.
Oh my God.
So they put that on and they all walked down the street in this perversion. People cheered for them. People clapped for them. It was celebrated on the news. That's an example of judgment. Not that you do that and you're going to get judged for it, but it's a matter of God has turned people over to perversions, and now they go do it, and they think it is smart. They think it's wise. They think it's the right way to go. So that's part of judgment. There's worthless thinking, there's moral insensitivity, and there's religious stupidity. We see vile affections, lusts of the heart. We can see a playboy empire for billions of dollars. We see degrading passions that take place. And then we see a depraved mind, heart, body, and mind. God is no longer holding back those perversions. God has now turned us over as a country to those things. And eventually it will destroy us. And the next thing is he can even withdraw his hand. We've had cyber attacks, we've had 9/11, we've had whatever. That's a progression of judgment. And so by denying him like we have, then we will do horrible things like one of the, in partial birth abortion, for example, here's a depraved mind. And I'm out there, people say, oh, Christians, you're arrogant. No, I know the truth from the Word of God. And in a partial birth abortion, that people fought for that. You take the baby, you turn it around so that his feet are birthed first. You take everything out except its head, and then you slice the back of its neck and you suck its brain out. That is what we have financed that.
Oh,
And that has taken place. It is a reprobate mind that thinks that's okay. We can do that. And I'm right and you're wrong. And it's hideous. And then, finally, and I'll jump from that then, but we have pleasure in them that do that. And we celebrate the politicians that will fight for that. And we celebrate the people in the parade. And the final thing within a society is people have pleasure. They cheer for perversions. And that's where we are. So kind of off topic, but I just wanted to put that in because some of the questions seem to center around that.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you just joined us, this is Cordial Conversations with Todd Rawlings. We are streaming on praise1049.com. And he is the author of Kill It Me Softly, America's Hidden Agenda for the Black Community. We are taking phone calls. We will be right back. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, if you'd like to call in and give us your version of a cordial conversation, the number to dial when we come back off break is 757-454-1650, 454-1650. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Bria Martin from Jacothy Behavioral Care Center.
Too much?
Plugged into
That last part I couldn't.
It's the truth, and we've got to expose it as the truth. And there are people that get elected.
What's the word? Graphic.
It is. I'm sorry, but that's what's happening. I mean, believe me, I can go down the list, and within the book, you will hear all of these different perversions that have taken place directed to the black community and the killing of black babies.
Wow.
So we'll there. I got off my preacher podium for a second, and we'll go to the next thing.
And the transgender thing is just like, okay, well, if you all want to create a hybrid human, then create their own sector of dealing, because if they want to compete in the Olympics, whatever idiot decided that would be fair, all people have to do is withdraw. All they have to do is withdraw. No one has to. Why do people contract with idiocy? I don't understand.
Because they've been turned over to reprobate minds. They think that that is actually the right thing. And it's so far removed. It's of the enemy. It's the spirit of Antichrist. And we believe it. We use it to run for offices, to get elected, and to become famous people on the basis of that sort of thing. I mean, I know, my oldest is a girl, and she will always, forever more, be my baby. And just the idea of turning her over to go into a bathroom with someone who goes in with has all the features of a male, and they're going to do whatever they do in front of her. It's, but again, the amazing thing is, where do we get to this point? How did it get that bad? I actually lost a piece of paper, so okay, there we go.
Todd Rawlings, and I would like to invite you to my new show, Cordial Conversations. I think we can all agree that there is just a tremendous amount of division with our country, and there are people that profit from us being divided. We need to hold leaders accountable. We need to reject the ugliness that's out there. We'll also be looking at the book, Killing Me Softly. It can be purchased on Amazon. That's Cordial Conversations with Todd Rawlings, Thursdays from 2 to 3, right here on Praise.
New Beach Road Baptist Church with Reverend Dr. Willard Maxwell Jr. is now on Praise Sunday mornings at 9:30.
I'm tired of the church bowing down and walking down in fear. We're supposed to be the head and not the tail, above and not beneath, and the river and not the barber. Walk in your authority.
New Beach Road is on Beachmont Drive in Newport News. Now you can listen to Reverend Maxwell Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Praise and on our screen at praise1049.com.
You're inside Cordial Conversations with Todd Rawlings, where every Thursday Pastor Rawlings comes to us about his book, Killing Me Softly, America's Hidden Agenda for the Black Community. And you got a little graphic that last segment, Pastor.
Okay, I'm sorry if I offended anyone, but it's what's happening.
I wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready.
Well,
but yeah, this is what's happening. Yeah.
And I will say there's that and more in Killing Me Softly, the book. And it especially highlights what our government has done to the black community. And it is vile and it is ugly. And we have done it because, as I've said, we want to ask the question, how does this affect the black community? Not special privileges or rights or whatever, but there's this bill being passed, there's this thing happening. How is that, or how has that affected the black community? It's important to ask. So some people don't know that has ever taken place, and it has taken place thousands of times.
Because I will go ahead and say this. I know I'm going to step on a lot of toes, but hey, not really shock radio, but just something for you to think about. When President Obama, I voted for President Obama twice, and I have nothing against the gay community. I have nothing personal against the gay community. Just the fact that he, who I voted for to do a little bit more for me as a single black mom, would go ahead and authorize, be legal for them to get married. I know it's all about money. I'm not totally naive, but my goodness, we have a phone call, and I don't want to miss them. Thank you so much for calling Cordial Conversations with Pastor Todd Rawlings. You're live on the air. Go ahead. Hello?
Hello, I was trying to return a call. Someone called me.
Okay, look, I think it's probably the wrong number, but thank you so much. You have a great day. But
Well-
as I was saying, the fact that I voted for President Obama both terms, and he legalized what most Christians would think is, an abomination. Like I said, me personal, I just wanted him to do a little bit more for me.
Yeah, well, and again, I think that's back where we've mentioned several times that we need to first and foremost see ourselves as children of God. As Christians, we're His people, and we need to make decisions based on those things. And unfortunately, we don't. I think politics has gotten to the point of, I'm a huge sports fan. And when you love a certain team, they can do nothing wrong. And when you dislike a certain team, every little thing that they do, my son has reminded me that here's this school and they did this, and I'm going, that's ridiculous. They should never be able to have a team again. And then my team does something similar. Well, I don't know. And so what happens is within politics, it's like we have a team. I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, I'm a liberal, and I will fight for that no matter what they do and say. And you even have right now, part of in the news is that the Catholic Church wants to deny our president communion. And, by doing so is basically damning him to hell within the Catholic community. So, that's
Wait,
one.
I'm sorry, because I don't watch the news. So you said, what now the Catholic Church is condemning who, Biden?
Joe Biden, because of his stance on abortion, and the Catholic Church take a strong stance against that. So.
Oh no, I thought you said something about him taking communion.
I will. So then what happens is a Catholic, if I understand this correctly, because I'm a Catholic, is offered communion by a priest and it absolves their sins. Okay, so, and again, you can deal with that theologically. So with Joe Biden, they have said, we want to deny him communion. So the Catholic Church will not offer him abolition of his sins. And so we have a president of the Catholic Church. But then what happens is, people that are Catholic, that are so committed to the Catholic Church, unfortunately, often are more committed to a party and more committed to liberal thinking. And so they will even turn their back on what their church and their authorities say because they don't like it. So
this is from a group of people who have been accused of pedophilia time and time again. I mean, why
well, that's true, and I am not a Catholic, but I love
But
the
I'm just
newspaper.
saying, I'm not accusing anyone. I'm saying the news has reported, them and their pedophilic ways, if that's a word. But
Sure.
You're going to deny. So why do we contract with these type of people? Why do we give them so much power over our lives? I don't get that.
Well, I think, and again, I just wanted to step back for 1 second of what we were talking about the homosexual community and whatever. Mm-hmm. As Christians, we need to hate the sin but love the sinner. Mm-hmm. And God died for everyone. Jesus, our Lord, died. It doesn't matter what perversion they have taken up, but He died for them. And so we need to love those people and to care for them. As far as the power, one of the things that people have always wanted in their lives, a couple of things, is power and money. And so whatever you can do to get that, then you will do it. And that's where I said before, unfortunately, even within the black community, because a group has been oppressed, people have come in and given people in that community high rank, high-paying job, whatever, put them on TV, said, you say this, you say this, you say this, and they are there to keep the black community, as we've said before, to cause them to heal.
Yeah.
Step back. Now, we'll do this and this and this to you, but when I come to tell you what to do, you better do it. Mm-hmm. And so as people, it's all about power and authority and money. And I mean, you can see with so many, they've changed their views. If you go to our president and look at an interview 20 years ago on these subjects, he was very strongly in this camp, and now he has completely changed. And it's because of you go where the voters go. You do whatever.
So yeah, and if you've just joined us, this is Cordial Conversations with Pastor Todd Rawlings. He wants to hear from you, 757-454-1650. 454-1650. But I just wanted to say also with the issue of taking prayer out of school, if we are to pray and never cease, or yeah, is that how it goes? Cease, never cease.
Pray without ceasing, yes.
Pray without ceasing, and yet they took it out of school. Then what are we worried about? Parents need to teach their children how to commune with God at any time without the pomp and circumstance. You don't have to get on your knees to pray. You don't have to fold your hands and pray. You can talk to God just like you talk to yourself when you're pondering things, when you're thinking what your next move is going to be. Praying is something that they can never take away from us. So to also give them that power to say that they took prayer out of school, I think is also like, trying to shift the responsibility. Teach your children how to pray, how to meditate, which is to cease speaking. Meditation is listening, and also pray, which is to talk to God, give him your issues, but without having to say it out loud.
Yes. Well, and with that, and I wanted to pick up something you said last week about personal responsibility. I think within the black community, and obviously I'm a white male, so I understand that. But when we look at history and the things that are taught in school, whatever, we as parents, whether you're black, white, red, it doesn't matter, we need to take that responsibility to train them and to teach them. And we need to quit looking at our school system and say, why didn't you teach them this? Well, teach them that yourself at home.
Okay, right there, there's a line drawn right there, though.
Okay.
Because the curriculum that's set up is still weak, in my opinion, as far as schools. And I'm not talking about the teachers. The teachers, I believe, they wanted to become teachers so that they could, be creative and have creative ways to teach children. Children learn different ways. Some learn visual, some learn audio, some learn by doing, having to put their hands on it and do it. So I am not criticizing the teachers. I am criticizing the curriculum.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Today.
Yeah, absolutely. And but again, I go back to the responsibility. Now, not everyone can do this, but my wife and I homeschooled. 4 individuals. You can imagine her challenge of having 4 kids in 4 different grades at the same time, teaching them. And it takes me back when people say there's something that's taken place in history and it was never taught, and people say, well, they don't teach you that in school. Well, that's fine. Then teach them that at home. And there's a lot of those things that my children have learned. And
now it's easy because they can Google most things, but back in the day before the internet, if they didn't know what to teach it, they couldn't teach it either.
Yeah. Well, and what you have to be careful is now with the homeschool movement, and the other thing that happened with the pandemic, there was a large group in the country that have been homeschooling. And for the most part, that came from Christian principles and standards. Well, now all of a sudden, people are seeing there's money out there to be made. So there's these groups that are saying, I'll give you the curriculum, I'll tell you what to do, I'll show you how to do it, then you teach yours at home. And so some of those same things that are wrong will now be taught with homeschoolers. So be careful, search the Word of God, search the truth, and teach your kids.
You're inside Cordial Conversations with Todd Rawlings right here on WTJZ Praise Your Ultimate Gospel Experience. And if you would like to chime in on what we're talking about cordially, the number is 757-454-1650, 454-1650. And again, Pastor Rawlings, we're not, our aim here, our agenda for this Cordial Conversations is not to put one group of people down, put another group of people up, including the Christian community, because a lot of times people are even duped everywhere you go, in whatever segment of groups that you have. If you don't do your own research, if you don't stop being a follower and begin to let God lead you yourself, which is coming from the inside, not the outside, then you can decipher for yourself. You can ask questions. You can take responsibility. And so that's what I want me as a person of color, my people to do. And like the education system, again, they might have taken prayer out of school, but they can't take prayer out of you.
Yeah, I think it was said once that as long as there's tests in school, there'll be prayer in school.
Right? Even the teachers will be praying, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you'd like to chime in, the number to call is 757-454-1650. But you are inside a thankful, thriving Thursday with cordial conversations with Pastor Todd Rawlings and his book, Killing Me Softly, America's Hidden Agenda for the Black Community, is on Amazon.com. You can go to Amazon.com, or you can email him at Rawlings, RAWLINGS, capital MT, at Verizon.net. That's Rawlings, MT, at Verizon.net, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And also just to remind everyone that we have a church, New Life Community Church, that is at 129 North Witchduck Road, 10:30 on Sunday morning. So if you're looking for a church, we're looking at laborers to go out into the fields. So please feel free to come by and to visit us. And also just to call out there, if you have a business and you would like to be a corporate sponsor of this show, I just invite you to do that. You can go to the website, cordialconversations.com, and there's a place there to give to help support the show as well.
And this book, Killing Me Softly, America's Hidden Agenda for the Black Community, where was that birth from? I read it, and you start off with, now are these imaginary conversations, or do these conversations really take place?
No, these are imaginary conversations.
Okay.
And hopefully what happens after the conversation is there are a lot of facts and figures to support different things. Obviously, I'm not privy to people's personal conversations and what have you, but it's conversations that you can imagine happening when you see the facts and the figures.
That's why I had to ask, because they're so dead on, like, wow, did these conversations really take place? And you would think they did because of what's happening in the world today.
Yeah.
So that was very imaginative of you.
Well, thank you.
And the book is an easy read. It's no more than 5 to 6 pages per chapter.
Yeah. Well, and thank you very, very much. And please pick up the book and please read it and call in and give us what your opinion is. Call in today if you want to. We'd love to talk with you. But also going along the idea of responsibility. And again, what you brought up last week, which I thought was so appropriate. Whether we're black or white, whatever it is, we need to take a certain stand as Christians. And so even to the degree, I've said before, the challenge with the black community and racism is that there is a small group in the black community that is very violent and committing a lot of crimes and what have you. Well, what happens then? Something happens there and someone records it. Then the networks play it 30 times a day. And so what happens is in the minds of white people and black people, whatever, is you all of a sudden say that is what the black community is like. And it's not true. It's a small portion of what the black community is. You know, I would just encourage all you young people out there, careful who your heroes are. There are a lot of heroes in the black community, and your parents who have worked hard, have taken care of you, whatever. Celebrate them.
Amen. Amen and amen again. Hallelujah.
Well, you may have to interrupt me here for a break, but let me just, even give an example of that in the news. There is a place where they are looking to put a statue of a black person up for people to come visit and to be inspired by them. Okay? Let me give you a list of the list of the nominees so far. There's an individual that was in prison and moved to the East Coast, and he later was arrested for aggravated robbery. And I won't tell you the good things they've done yet, whatever, but he is a person submitted to be on a statue, be a statue. He was arrested at one point for counterfeiting, and during the time that he counterfeited, he was full of some very, very strong illegal drugs. There's another person then that has had a criminal record for about 10 years and went to prison 5 different times. So he's a nominee. You have these. There was a person who was the ringleader of a group that went into a woman's house, and this woman was pregnant. And this person held a gun to her stomach. Here's the graphic things again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, please, no more graphics.
Okay,
I can't take it today, Pastor.
Yeah, okay. Held the gun there and had her stand there while his partners ransacked the entire house looking for drugs and money, whatever. He is someone that they've nominated. There's a person that spent 10 months in jail for possession of cocaine, and he's been nominated. There's a person who was sentenced for 8 months, another time for possession of cocaine. He's been nominated. And there was a person in 2002 that was arrested for criminal trespassing and served 30 days. And then in 1988, another person who served in prison for theft. Now there is a group, I would just ask you, which one of those men, regardless of what else they've done, do you in the black community want to hold up and take your children to see the statue? Which one of those would you choose? Take them to see your statue and say, here, this son is what I want you to be. Here, daughter, this is what I want you to be. It would make me so proud if you turned out like this individual. And I just wonder how many people would pick that person. Now, there's obviously redeeming qualities of the individual. How many of those people, the person that held the gun, the person that did cocaine, the person that robbed, which one of those do you want to make a statue of in the black community and say, come on, here's what we need to be? Well, here's the thing. All those things, that was a lot of different people. That was one person. Get a little controversial here. That was George Floyd. Every single one of those things he had done. Now, what happened to him was wrong. It was a crime. The person was tried and convicted. That should happen. But I just want to call to the black community. There are a lot of heroes in the black community. There are a lot of such strong men and women of God. Be careful who you put on a t-shirt. Be careful who you hold up as a sign and tell the youth, this is what I want you to be in your life. This is one of our heroes. There are such tremendous heroes within the community. Ben Carson. I bet a lot of people don't even know Ben Carson's story, but Ben Carson was the first person to separate twins that were joined at the head. Just an amazing, brilliant person. Ended up working for HUD. Booker T. Washington, he lifted the veil of ignorance from people. He pointed away in education and industry. He was just amazing. Of course, we know Martin Luther King, and he has been celebrated. Another would be Frederick Douglass. He's a slave that wrote about his journey in escaping as a slave. It's an amazing story. This man, we all stand on his back right now. The things that he has done, his autobiography, tremendous man. Put those people on a t-shirt. Make a statue of those people. Go to it and say, son, daughter, this is Frederick Douglass. Let me tell you what he had to endure. And let me tell you what he did for our people. And let me tell you whatever. What happened to George Floyd was a travesty. But there's not a comparison in people between Frederick Douglass or Ben Carson or George Floyd. And I just believe that if we in the black community, and I will say it again because it's worth saying, young people, sometimes it's hard to understand, that father that you have that gets up every morning and goes to work, he doesn't want to go to work. None of us do. That mother who took on an extra job to help get you through school, celebrate them. And that, I will still submit, is the vast majority of the black community. Mm-hmm. And don't look at these sound bites and clips of these other people who are often criminals. Don't hold them up. Teach your kids, show them. I mean, Thomas Sowell, anyone here, I know we're running out of time real quick, but anyone here that will commit to listening to Thomas Sowell, Sowell, on YouTube for an hour, you email me and I will email the book to you for $5.95 if you will just listen to him for an hour. Brilliant, brilliant black man. Just a tremendous.
How do you spell Sal?
Sowell, and you can go to YouTube and say Thomas and look him up. He is just, I stand in awe of him. I wish I had a tenth of his intelligence.
Well, we do have to take a quick commercial break, but we will have about 2 more minutes when we come back with cordial conversations with Pastor Todd Rawlings right here on Praise. Don't you go anywhere.
This is Dr. Frank Lombardozzi with Kempsville Chiropractic, and I'm plugged into Praise.
We're talking to
Okay, well, boy, it goes fast, doesn't it? It goes fast.
It does. No one realizes when you're having a good time or when you're having a great talk or a great time period, anything good, it goes by fast. But when you don't want to be there, it drags.
You're so good at this. I think we could probably sit down with a cup of coffee and just talk for 3 hours about whatever topic comes up,
Yeah, because
and it would go by.
that last topic about statues and idols, first of all, but I'm not going to go there because we don't have time. It's in the Bible that we shouldn't be doing that anyway. We shouldn't be putting idols up. And second of all, like you said, if you got to, then do your parents. If your parents weren't good or for whatever reason, look in the mirror. Period. Stop looking outside yourself for idols to be put up. Even the statues that they tore down of the slave owners, the Confederate people, those statues should not be up. Period. Because that's in the Bible.
Yeah.
So.
But, I think it's alarming to think that so many, especially young black people, but, older ones as well, don't always know the history of the brilliant, sacrificial, amazing black people in history. But, that name of that guy on TV,
Yeah,
that
because it's programmed in their brain.
it's programmed. They don't want you to hear the rest. They want you to do whatever. I challenge any person, black, white, or whatever, to compete against Ben Carson or Sal for, as far as an intelligent conversation. They amaze me.
Well, it's all by design. And whoever was the mad scientist that designed it, it might have been dark and terrible, but I gotta give them their props. They did a hell of a job in brainwashing everybody, and they did a mind screw to us.
They've done a great job. They infiltrated the media, took it over. They infiltrated colleges, as far as the professors, and took that over. And then they have just put it in people's minds over and over until you believe it. You hear something 25 times a day.
Oh yeah.
And that's back to where the thing too is, even with a young person saying, I'm afraid. If you are a young black man or woman and you have not broken the law, you're not doing drugs, you're not a criminal, and you're out there driving, the chances of you getting pulled over and shot, it's like, I'll have to look this up for sure, but 3 times greater that you'll be hit by lightning than you will be pulled over and shot. Now, but it is real to live in that fear and to live in whatever. It's absolutely real. But again, it programs them. You need to be afraid. There are people watching you walk down the street just want to pull over and shoot you in the head. There's not.
Right, and again, you're right, it comes with the programming, and it comes with what's being programmed into your brain. But when you are a standout type of person, there's just weird people. Doesn't have to be a police officer. Yeah. If you're a celebrity of any kind, there are just some weird people. 10 seconds.
No, that's absolutely true. But
so it doesn't have to be a police. It could just be a racist person in the community, and they would do something stupid.
Well, that's true. But again,
I was running through the community. We're back.
Sure.
here on Praise Radio.
Inside Cordial Conversations with Pastor Todd Rawlings, and this is a thankful, thriving Thursday. We are taking a look at his book, Killing Me Softly, America's Hidden Agenda for the Black Community. So since we've got about 5 good minutes, maybe 4, give us some information on how they can order not only that book, but your other books dealing with the pain in our lives, and 10 minutes more.
Well, the first one, dealing with the pain in our lives, you can read that off of Kindle. And it's basically because Christians sometimes are afraid to say if you're really hurting, if you're depressed, if something's happening in your life. And we go to church and we put on a smiley face and we whatever. And then people come in, they sit, they listen to the sermon, and then they go home hurting again. And it's okay to hurt. And how do we do that? And just because you accepted Jesus doesn't mean you will never have any pains. I mean, unless you have, Coco. I've had quite a few after being a Christian, pains in my life. So
before and after.
the second one is 10 minutes more. And it is written in such a way that a 7th grader can read it. It's a small book you can carry with you as you pray. And I've just always said that the second greatest gift you can give to your children is to teach them to pray. And then Killing Me Softly. Again, I've tried to write it in such a way that it's not too laborious to sit down. You can read a chapter in a few minutes, you can whatever. And it's just to expose what our government has done, the decisions they've made, and never to ask, but if we do this, how will it affect the black community? It's not asked. I'm just saying, ask that question before you vote. How will this affect them?
Right, exactly,
Right?
exactly.
Well, one more thing. How much time do I have before we close?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. And I want to pick this up for another week. The other thing people have asked is, what is the future for black America? As you are lied to from TV and politicians and news people, it looks pretty bleak. It looks ugly out there. But let's just look on another side of that. You know, for a black person, it is easier for them to get into any college and university, easier for them than a white male. You don't have to have as high as SAT scores. You don't have to have as high as a GPA. And you can be accepted to a school that maybe someone else couldn't. The financial aid that's available, there's more available to you than there is to other people. We also, there's just a thing happened with the Supreme Court where athletes in college are now going to be able to be compensated further than just a full scholarship. So there's 300 Division I schools in this country. And so even if you're not going to go pro as a basketball player, you can go and get an education and beyond, by doing that. Mm-hmm. There are, and even with the violence, I understand, but, right now there's twice as many white people getting shot unarmed by police in the country than there are black people. So, and as I mentioned before, in pro athlete, do you realize the next 30, 40 years is going to be huge for the black community because of the salaries that have taken place within the NBA and other organizations? With that, there will be, 10, 15, 20 black people a year that become billionaires before they're 40.
Well, Pastor Rawlings, becoming one and sustaining to become one, or sustaining being one, which is giving back to the public, in my opinion. No, I've never been a millionaire before, but I know there's certain tax breaks for millionaires.
Yeah.
So, but getting to the top and staying on the top are two different things, but I hear what you're saying, and that is a great, fortunate blessing for the black community, hopefully.
Well, with that taken care of right, we can provide more education for the black community. We can provide more jobs for the black community. We can provide security for the black community. If the black community will use those things and bind together and take, brilliant people that were athletes at one time, Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan and even Shaq. These are brilliant businessmen as well. Mm-hmm. And people will partner with them. And if you use that at some point, hopefully, there's not going to be this strong desire to have the government do it, have the government fix this, have whatever. No, some of the most wealthy people in this country, and for years and years to come, is going to be within the black community. Help each other out. Reach out to some of those people, and those of you that are good husbands, fathers, what have you, stand up and make yourself known. I love my wife.
No,
I
right.
love my children. I care for them. I have taught them to not do drugs. I have gone to inner cities and I've used my notoriety to say, stop it.
Amen, amen. Well, that is a great and positive way to end this session of Cordial Conversations with Pastor Todd Rawlings. Again, his book, Killing Me Softly, America's Hidden Agenda for the Black Community, as well as his other books dealing with the pain in our lives, and 10 Minutes More, can be found on Amazon. And you can always email him at rawlingsmt@verizon.net. That's rawlingsmt@verizon.net. Thank you so much, Pastor, for being with us one more time. And we look forward to next Thursday.
Well, thank you, Coco. Radio show or not, just getting to speak with you for an hour a week is great. I just look forward to it.
You're too kind. Thank you. Willie Moore Jr.'s on the radio in about 4 minutes. Don't you go anywhere. You're on WTJZ Praise, your ultimate gospel experience.
I will try it hopefully next week or whatever to get us back into the book and where we can look at a chapter at a time and discuss it and what have you.
Sure.
And I'm a little disappointed why people aren't calling in, but you know, we'll work on it and see.
Yeah, it was someone calling in, but then they stopped. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. But I think most of the time it's because they just really enjoy hearing us. They don't want to say anything. They just want to be entertained.
Well, and also the other good thing is sometimes it's easier if you're negative to call than if you're positive. And so we haven't got that either.
Right, exactly. You're right about that.
So yeah, but can you imagine? I know I keep making an issue of it, but I just want to hope that someone grabs it, whether it's a Magic Johnson or a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and say, I want to get us together. Because $50 million a year is the new max that you can make in the NBA is the next year. So you play 10 years, $500 million. Can you imagine? I mean, you're talking about 15 people a year. You know, can you imagine the good that can come of that?
They would have to live below their means, and
Yeah.
they're not willing to do that.
Yeah, so take about 50 million, I'm going to have to spend 100,000 of it.
I know that if I had it, I would have an attorney, a manager, and people, real estate, what do you call them, the appraisers. I would have all of them ready to, take on the responsibility of building a community, but,
Yeah, because you have to be careful. Here we are again, probably too controversial for me to bring up.